Jubilees was a book that was taken outside of the Bible, that was taken away from the Bible. But it's a very good book and it's very important. I believe this is why it was taken out, because in Jubilees 13 through 15, they say very important things about the Torah. And before I read those verses, the Torah was given to us for instructions. It was given to us for those who want to seek the face of our Creator, for those who want to be His children, for those who love Him, for those who do as He says. And if we are not following the Torah, if we are not in the Torah, we are hating what He says, we are doing that, we are taking Yah's Torah, we are throwing it in the trash, we're telling Him to get bent, and we do not want to do as He says. We are disobeying Him, we are being disobedient children. That is why all the children of Israel went into captivity all those times, because they could not figure out that they needed to follow the Torah, that they could not figure out that they were blessed because they had the Torah, but they would get cursed when they walked away from the Torah. It starts in Jubilees, the first chapter, verse 13. He goes, "And I will send witnesses unto them, that I may witness against them. But they will not hear, and will slay the witnesses also. And they will persecute those who seek the Torah, and they will abrogate and change everything so as to work evil before my eyes." Now in that verse alone, it says so many things. It says, they will change my Torah. And it is changed as today. The people believe that we should be celebrating the Sabbath on Sunday. They think we should be eating pork, that all food is clean. That is what he is talking about when they change the Torah. And it is very hard for people to see that. The Christians, the Catholics, those who do not understand, they see that the Torah is done away with, when it is not. When he says here that those who will seek it get persecuted, because they do. When people say they want to follow the Torah, they get called Jew, they get called evil, they get called under the law, they get called under burdens. And they get discriminated. They get their spirits diminished because of the people that discriminate them, and they have second thoughts about it, because when they are new into it, they are attacked for what they believe. And that is not right. So he goes on, he goes, "And I will have my face for them, and I will deliver them into the hand of other nations for captivity, and for a prey, and for devouring. I will remove them from the midst of the land, and I will scatter them amongst the other nations." And that's what happened to Israel. That's what happened today. People are confused. Nobody understands what is real. Nobody understands what is right, because they do not follow the Torah. They are being preyed on by these evil animals because they do not understand what is right and what is the Torah. And he goes in 15. This is the final verse I'll read here. And he goes, "And they will forget all my Torah and all my commandments and all my judgments, and will go astray as to new moons and Shabbat and feasts and Jubilees and ordinance." And that is true. As today they have forgotten everything. We don't know about new moons. We don't do the feast as Christmas, as Saturnalia, as the day of the birth of Nimrod. It's coming up. That is not a day. That is not a feast to Yah. That is not the birth of our Messiah. That is not the birth of Yahushua. His birth was around the Feast of Trumpets. It would be more like September, October, in that area when the Feast of Trumpets was around. The day that is coming up, December 25th, that is the day of the pagans. They would worship that. It says in Jeremiah 50. He says, or Jeremiah 10, he says, "Do not take down the trees, do not put linen and gold as the pagans do." That is exactly what they did back in the day. They would take a tree and they would grow up, and that was Nimrod. That was his obelisk. That was all those satanic things he would put up, and that was in validation of Nimrod, because the Nimrod's birth, this winter solstice, is based on his birth and his worship of December 25th. And if we don't have the Torah, we won't follow the correct ones, the ones he says to do in April or March, the ones he says that need to be done, the Feast of Trumpets, the Feast of Tabernacles, Yom Kippur, the Pesach. We don't do any of those because we don't know the Torah. And that is why it is so important now we read our Bibles and we understand the Torah. And that's why this book was taken out, because if the people knew that the Torah was good, we would be following it. And that is not what Hassan wants. He wants to be astray. He wants us to be going and worshiping Nimrod on his day. He does not want us. That's why we have Halloween. People, all the Christians have their little parties. They put a mask on it and say it's not for Satan, but it's for God. But it's still on the day of Halloween they celebrate it. We are worshiping Satan on those days when we are sitting there going on those pagan days. The same with Easter, the same as Valentine's Day. All those are satanic. Those are all based off upon Nimrod. Those are all based off on Hasatan in his days. And if we are not in the Torah, we don't understand what those days are. But when you have the Torah, you understand that those days were not celebrated by him. As well with Hanukkah. That is not a day that Yah has declared for us. He never said, "Go celebrate Hanukkah, go give 7 days of presents, go light candles and have a feast." He says, my feast. He tells you when his feast days are. And that is during the Passover. That is during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, those are the days you should be celebrating with Yah. Those are the days you should have. So read your Bibles, get in the Torah, have a good Shabbat.